Hi, this is Marie, and you're watching Sports Chat Fanatic. And I'm joined today with Leonard Marshall, and we'll be discussing a little bit about the NFL and the concussion lawsuits and his book. Hello, Leonard.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. So I know you've written a book. Would you like to share a little bit about, your purpose of the book and your audience?
Yes, well, this one actually is my second book that I put out, and with a lot of pride, I got my former head coach Bill Parcells to add a little bit of pizzazz to it and write the preface. But I did this project with a writer that used to write for ESPN, the magazine, a young man from Boston by the name of William Benditson. And although this is his first book, I felt that Willie was able to take my story and the story that I wanted to convey and take the interviews in which I got players to openly talk about concussion, dementia, chronic traumatic encephalitis, Alzheimer's, early onset Alzheimer's, and chronic pain associated with playing the game of pro football. And if you're a guy who played the game as long as I did and played well into your 30s, and even deeper in your 30s, you definitely left this game with a ton of personal issues and injuries associated with the game. Now, the other piece to that is disclosure. And disclosure is, what did the teams tell you while you're playing the game? What did they disclose to your agent or your health advisors while you're playing the game? And if you're concussed more than 3 times in the course of a season, what happens to you when you've been concussed? I can tell you that in a lot of cases, including mine, that I was never advised at that level. I would love to go deeper and talk about that on camera, but I don't want to hurt or diminish the value of my case. That's ongoing with the NFL and Riddell, the helmet provider. But I will tell you that there wasn't a lot of disclosure from teams I played for, and including the New York Giants, in terms of my health and wellness postseason and preseason, returning the following season.
Do you think that's changed in football today?
I don't think it's changed. I don't know if it's changing. It may or may not be, being that I'm not an active player and I'm not an active dues-paying member with the NFLPA, and able to obtain more information regarding that. It hinders my ability to have that knowledge. The NFL alumni, I think, can do a better job in terms of sharing that information with players. Whether a player pays a $50 member fee or not, they have an onus and an obligation as a former player to a former player, because we all fraternity brothers, to share that information. I think that guys like Dave Pear, Brett Boyd, Carl Eller, Harry Carson, Mike Ditka, Barry Foster, one of your former Steeler guys, and myself, we're all trying to level, Joe DeLamalure, we're trying to level the playing field to help players that play the game, to not have guys pass away or commit suicide like Andre Waters, like Dave Durson, like Mike Webster, and leave the game and leave their family a legacy behind, other than being broke and destitute and not really knowing who they are anymore.
Yeah.
And not really having to deal with that challenge alone and feel alone while they go through that process.
Can you explain a little bit what CTE is for people that might not know about it?
From a medical standpoint, I am not astute enough to talk about CTE as much, but I can tell you from being a player who has CTE, and this form of encephalitis causes you to have emotional roller coaster rides, where you feel great, and then there's days where you feel like shit, and there's days that you have highs with a tremendous amount of lows, and then there's days that you think you're on top, and then you fight yourself. There's also days where you wish you didn't put yourself in this position, okay? And there's players that talk about this, and they become suicidal, okay? And you know what happens when you become suicidal. It's almost like being bipolar, but not being on the meds to deal with bipolarism. And it's a tough situation because, you know, just like that, I lost a teammate a year ago who happens to be in this book. And he donated his brain to a study at the University of Boston. And they found out he had CTE and dementia. Now, here's a guy who served on the disability board for retired players. But on the league side now, not on the player side, on the league side, here's a guy who denied more players' claims for having dementia, having CTE, having early onset Alzheimer's, including a young man like Andre Waters who blew his brains out, okay, because of CTE. So, you know, you never know when it's going to happen to you, is the point I'm trying to make. And you never know when it's going to happen to your family from what you did in the game of pro football. So you kind of better tread water thinly and understand that it's better to be with your fraternity brothers than to be with the enemy, because the enemy didn't help you to begin with. So what makes you think the enemy is going to help you now? Unless you have a motive that you don't want the rest of your fellow comrades or your fellow fraternity brothers to know about. What would make you side with the enemy? What would make you side with a guy who took everything from you instead of giving it back to you? You know, the misnomer that, you know, players, they end up with a trophy wife, they live in a McMansion, they play golf every day of the week, their kids are in private school, they don't have a worry in the world. Let me tell you something, that's 8% of the National Football League when they retire. And most of those kids play quarterback, okay? So the rest of the population are the 92% of the guys that play the game, that lead the game, and that for no other reason, they're going to blow through that money if they don't have a financial mind and they don't have a stable environment. You're going to blow through the money, and all you're going to be left with is the memories and the trinkets from the game, because you don't get any health insurance when you leave. If you've got a chronic injury, let's say you're hooked on pain pills because you got problems with your hips, you got problems with your neck like I do. I got 4 ruptured discs in my neck. You got back problems. You got knee problems. You got ankle problems. You got foot problems. And let's say you saved $2 million from the game. Let's say you got to pay for health insurance for you and a family of 3. You're talking $2,200 a month for a 10-year period. That's $2.2 million, okay, which people don't understand now. Now, that's $2.2 million for 10 years. So let's say you were 35 years old when you did that. Okay, now you're 45 years old. You got another 10 years to ride out till you collect a pension. Okay? I mean, there's a lot of play in there that is not discussed amongst players, family, agents, so forth and so on. And while it's tough for people to feel sorry for millionaires from the game, let me just say this, that it's not so much feeling sorry about a player, but it's about caring for someone who at one time served a purpose in your life, that either he entertained you, he became a hero to you, your kids, your family, or whatever, and taking the human interest out of who that player really is and what he represented at that point in time in his life and in your life, from the outside looking in, I think it's a shame. It's a shame. And the human interest piece is kind of what, you know, players are now fighting for, because, you know, these teams were this team was sold. Half of this team was sold to Tisch family for $125 million in 1991, just before Bill Parcells left the team. This team is now worth $1.6 billion. Okay, now that's 20 years ago. Okay, so obviously the chance to level the playing field with the men that built the game and built the team and helped the National Football League become the quasi number one team sport in the world right now. I think it's horrible what the players that built the game, the Newt Rockneys of the world that built this game, it's a shame what they've had to endure versus the luxury that these players provided for these owners' families, and so forth and so on. They don't have their piece of the pie. They don't have their 40 acres and a mule, and it's time for that to happen.
Do you have any thoughts of writing possibly another book?
Yes, it's funny you say that. I'm working on one right now. I'm working on a story right now about, and I could talk a little bit about it. I'm working on a story right now about a buddy of mine, and I actually want to see it. I want to see it become a movie, to be honest with you, because this buddy of mine was murdered in 1994, and he was murdered in New Jersey. And I don't want to say his name because I don't want anybody to I'll tell you off camera about it, but I will say that he was a gentleman that followed the football team quite extensively. He became one of my best friends, if not best friend. And he was murdered in Bergen County, New Jersey, and he was one of the original founding members of 9 West shoe stores, and became an independent shoe store owner. And he had an addiction, and I never knew he had such an addiction. He was a sex addict, and he was a guy who associated his life with that of a player. And when I say that of a player, I mean that, he thought he could go and do things that players could do, and hang out on that level, and have a good time while doing so. And he got caught up in something. He got caught up in something that he should never have gotten himself into. And had he not had, that fast guy mentality, because most of these people think of football players as fast guys, guys that live their life, dangerously, like a couple guys that played on my football team, and the reputation that they garnered. But this guy wasn't that guy to me. And when he passed away, I found out he had a double life. And having that double life is what led him into trouble, and how he got murdered. And so this story that I'm working on is about him, and the life he led, and the life he could have had, and the pain that his family's had to endure, being that he's not here.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
So on a little bit of a happier note,
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about your nonprofit.
Let's do it.
So what can you tell us all about it? What was your purpose for starting it?
Well, the Game Plan Foundation was developed, Anne-Marie, to help set up the book, to be honest with you, because I felt like there was a story to be told about players with concussions and players that have health problems associated with them at this point from the game. There's something out there going on now that a lot of people really don't know, that it's almost as big as 70% of retired players are hooked on painkillers. Okay, I don't know if there's something that you knew. It's not a public record,
Yeah.
but you may be able to find some stuff on the internet about it. But there's a lot of guys that are taking medication like Oxycontin, Vicodin, hydrocodone, Percocet. Stuff that would blow your mind.
Yeah.
And would make you say, wow, my favorite player is a pill junkie. But he's not. He's a guy that because of everything against him and being against all odds, he's a guy that doesn't want to quit, can't afford to go and have surgery. Excuse me, and for a number of reasons he can't afford it, and doesn't have health insurance or have the ability to take care of himself the way he once did, and doesn't have the support system in place to help him, which means that he's not either not in a stable relationship or doesn't have a surrogate partner or partner that has health insurance or can offer him a level on which he could successfully take care of himself. So that's what led me to start the Game Plan Foundation. And that's what led me to being able to help players, voice their opinion against the league and speak out on issues that that they felt strongly about. And let's try to help change the image of the guys that put this thing on for 20 weeks in the fall and have them go back and look at the gladiators that built this sport and turn them into billionaires.
Well, thank you very much.
You're
it was
welcome.
a pleasure having you. And you all better make sure to check out, look out for his book. And this is A. Marie. You're watching Sports Chat Fanatic.